Hello, YouTubers, Ukrainers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shields, deaths, search, peasants, vassals, minions. I'm a useful idiot. Welcome. And today we're going back to the Ukraine because things have gotten pretty dramatic since the last time I did a video, which was a couple weeks ago. And to pick up where that video left off, there was an agreement made, but of course the agreement didn't involve the people who are actually perpetrating these rebellions in eastern Ukraine, the armed mobs now in eastern Ukraine. And so I doubted the fact that they could disarm these groups, and of course they didn't disarm these groups. And now the movements there have expanded. And it's not hard to predict that limited success with these takeovers would encourage more of them, and now we've had more successes that have encouraged even more successes. So we've seen this spread, but I stand by my feeling that thus far I have a hard time classifying it as a civil war as much as a rebellion, because there aren't very large crowds. If there was crowds of 20, 30, 40, 50,000 in a lot of these cities, I'd be very impressed and would think that we could characterize this another way. But since we have a total of somewhere between 1,000 and 3,000 armed gunmen, basically spread out over 10 to 13 cities, it's hard to characterize it as a civil war per se, and therefore I'll still characterize it as a rebellion. And one of the other things I talked about in the last video has certainly manifested here as well, is that we would have mixed loyalties in the police and in the military. And we've seen the dramatic results of the mixed bag with the military, as many have deserted or crossed to the other side. And now we have police only finding a fairly small amount of police that are willing to fulfill their duties, and we've also seen shocking videos of what's been happening to them, overwhelmed by these large crowds. And my understanding is that about 20% of the population of these eastern regions, these pro-Russian regions, really have strong feelings about rejoining with Russia. Many of them are still consider themselves part of the Ukraine and want to work something out there as an autonomous region. But in the meantime, we have Slavyansk, and this is where the offensive is going on now by the Ukrainian military. And the Ukrainian military has a lot on the line this time, so they're probably going to be pushing pretty hard in that region, and they appear to be doing so. And there seems to be a fair amount of combat as well. We have 1 to 3 helicopters down, and multiple casualties, including wounded and dead through all these different areas. Horlivka, Donetsk, Luhansk, and then we also have these confrontations in Kiev, in the main square in Kiev, and I also attached some videos below there, and I found that very disturbing to see the right-wing, small right-wing crowd march into a much larger crowd of pro-Russian supporters and basically go looking for violence. And it's a very disturbing video. And when I see that, it makes it hard for me to see exactly what's going to heal Ukraine anytime soon. There's a lot of anger and a lot of violence out there that can still be unleashed. And one of the quotes that I read is, quote, "The population is mostly sympathetic or openly supports the occupiers and their motives," unquote. So I get the picture from that, and the fact that polls suggest only 20% are in favor of rejoining with Russia, but we have massive kind of acquiescent support for these pro-Russian actors in all these cities. And also the talk about whether it's Russian provocateurs or whether Russia's pulling the strings here. certainly we can't rule that out, but as I said in my last video about the Ukraine, I think there's enough ex-military, ex-police, ex-intelligence, ex-security, ex-special forces people in Ukraine that could certainly put together the kind of numbers and the kind of weapons that we've seen from these pro-Russian militias or armed mobs that we see in all these cities in eastern Ukraine. And in some ways, Kiev doesn't dare move too hard because risks provocation from Russia or provoking Russia. And as I said in the last video, it doesn't seem like it would be in Russia's interest to provoke more destabilization in the Ukraine by moving troops in themselves. But it's hard for me to gauge how much provocation it would take for something like that to happen. And we're seeing certain events, and I felt in the last couple of weeks that if we saw some dramatic galvanizing event, a large loss of life, or some more dramatic violence, then we could see things escalate more, and we could also see more people driven into the streets. And now it seems like we have that event, because now we have the trade unions building fire, and 38 pro-Russian supporters were killed in this building. And this could be a galvanizing event, and this could motivate and get more people in the streets against the Kiev government in eastern Ukraine, and also southern Ukraine now, because that's another development that we have with the port city of Odessa. And we had rival pro-Russian, pro-Kiev government rallies that turned deadly, with 3 killed and 15 wounded. And there's also clips of that attached below the violence that's going on in southern Ukraine now as well. So all in all, a lot of pretty dramatic events. The 38 killed in this trade union building, the fact that we have helicopters being shot down, and body counts going up, and a military campaign going on in Ukraine against Slavyansk, and the fact that we have these whole sector descending into more violence. It seems like the natural conclusion is to be that cycle of violence will feed into more cycle of violence, unfortunately. So right now it looks like we need to pay attention to this story on an hourly and daily basis. As many times in these unfolding events in Ukraine, things can happen quickly, and events unfold dramatically. So here we are. I stand by the last video I did, my observations, and we've seen the conclusion that the escalation of violence is here. Whether we can call it a rebellion or a civil war, still debatable, and let's watch the events unfold in the next few days. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.